Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, friends, everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope this finds you healthy and safe. Boy, my eyesight. If it's not the glasses, it's my eyeballs. I'm seeing poorly this morning. I apologize. Let's continue with the Vimalakirti Sutra. Keep in mind, the time period of this sutra is somewhat prior to Nagarjuna, not by a whole lot, but maybe 50 years or so. That's not when it was taught, of course. Shakyamuni taught it long before. But in the area of northeast, India, in like the Gandhara region at the time, a lot of the oral transmitted teachings were transcribed, either for the elite class, the scholars, having scribes put to work so they would make money, earn a living, or shelter, or whatever, by doing this. Of course, these scribes had to be educated in order to be able to move from Prakrit, Gandhari, different, Sanskrit, Pali, all the different languages that many of these were not only recited in, but also transcribed in previous efforts. But between the time period of 100 BC to 100 CE, there was a lot of activity in Gandhara, writing stuff down. The interesting thing to me about the Vimalakirti is that it's really addressed to this bridge from early teachings, sometimes called Hinayana. Some people would consider Theravada to be part of that group. They've arranged their own canon with their own ideas, which have been proven not valid over time. But at any rate, the way these sects and early sects created their basis of Buddhism generally led to the idea of enlightenment as something personally achieved, and the goal, the arhatship as the goal, was a self-liberated person who was no longer subject to influence from worldly, mundane things, and basically went off on their own to live out what they would call their last lifetime. Still this idea of continuance beyond death. Tibetan, full of folk stories and folk wisdom from all around Buddhism. They inculcated into their theory of Buddhism, and to this day, even to the Dalai Lama's chagrin, a great deal of belief in reincarnation and all these stages of death. And it's just not, it's not real, it's not valid, and it actually takes us away from our enlightenment. And that's the truly miserable part. So teachings like the Vimalakirti, even prior to Nagarjuna's writing of the Madhyamika Karika, his middle way, and his expounding on sunyata, the reason he had to expound on emptiness and all that is because they were arguing. They were arguing with these early stuck to their early oral teachings as though that was the only real teaching, and we're not going any further. We've already reached enlightenment. We don't need your claptrap and blah, blah, blah. Well, Mahayana, as you know, is all about the scholarship of Buddhism. And so people like Nagarjuna were trying to straighten out the situation and point to, at great depth, the significance and the meaning in Shakyamuni's teachings, which was being missed by those who they, in Shakyamuni's words, thought they had achieved what they had not. So the reason I bring all of that up is because in the Vimalakirti, we have an address to the Arahants and Bodhisattvas. And it's sort of a transition period showing the Arahants that they have not achieved what they think they have achieved, and that their next step is to work toward the Bodhisattva. And even Pratyeka Buddha is talked about in here as an initial step toward Bodhisattva. But obviously this teaching stands in stark contrast to you've achieved what there is to achieve. You have not. Things go beyond the point that you have realized. What you have done is worthy of respect and reward, but it is not complete, and therefore it is not perfect. Perfect enlightenment, complete enlightenment, terms we run into a lot as we move through the perfection of wisdom into the Bodhisattva path, and ultimately to the Lotus Sutra, how to awaken immediately this Buddha that we all have innately within the structure of life. So I read up until the first verse section, and so we'll read the verse section today, and then I'll talk briefly about it's basically a recap, but there's always, I find, in the verse sections, little nuggets introduced that were not finally defined in the more prosaic language of the, how shall we say, the main body. It's hard to say that because these teachings were taught orally, and they were meant to be memorized and repeated orally. And obviously the verse section is the easiest rhythmic one to remember the most. But as I pointed out before, even the more story-like portions of the teachings have a sort of a rhythm and a repetition and an idea that's more, maybe a more elaborate song. But certainly the verse section tries to nail it down in something easily memorable, right, with a rhythm. So here we go. Eyes pure and broad like the blue lotus, mind pure, steeped in meditations, for pure deeds long accumulated, boundless in fame. Your quietude guides the assembly, thus we bow our heads. We have seen the great sage work miraculous transformations, showing us all the countless lands in 10 directions. The Buddhas expounding the law therein, every one of these we have seen and heard. Now pause right there. It's that time of the year, dryness and sinus drainage, and I really apologize. I know it's annoying as heck. But I will persevere. These lands, again, these countless lands, these aspects of our experience, these students who are reading this in verse, saying this in verse, are saying, we've experienced what you've taught us to see and look for. The Dharma King's Dharma powers surpass all other beings. Constantly he bestows Dharma riches on them all. Skillfully he distinguishes the characteristics of phenomena, never faltering in his grasp of the one great truth. The one great truth, the distinguishing of characteristics of all phenomena. This is what we've been talking about, and I've been trying to verbiate to make up a word in a more modern dialogue, the true nature of the process of life in all phenomena, right? That's what they're talking to. And that there is one process for everything. You have learned to treat all phenomena with freedom. In other words, instead of clinging and identifying and distinguishing and making everything a contained, obsessive, clinging, owned identity for the satisfaction of our samsaric nature to glom onto everything and make permanent, you've actually freed them. It's a kind of an awkward way of saying that you realize, and you've helped us realize, that all that phenomena is just a wave in the ocean. It's just an impermanent instantiation for us to observe and take account of, but not cling to, not to make permanent. That it is here moment by moment and may vanish in the next. It's not a thing in and of itself. It's a construct. Everything is a construct, right? You define things as neither existing nor not existing. Causes and conditions bring about their birth. Okay? So this is, again, a description of skandhas, but skandhas from the perspective that everything has skandhas. Maybe not evolved into actual consciousnesses, but everything has the 10 factors, right? The appearance, the substance, the cause, the latent cause, the effect. It's all part of its momentum of gathered energies and instantiations. So it's not that they don't exist. They exist in each moment as a construct of that particular moment, not the next, not the one before. So it's not that they exist as we would like to in samsara, put a nail in it and make it that way all the time. That's not factual, because everything, including the nail, is going through duration, decrepitude, and gone. Everything arises, endures, my goodness, and disappears, right? Reintegrates, if you will. But it's also not that it doesn't exist, because it is there. It's just that it's there as a temporary, momentary experience of there-ness, right? So with that understanding, we start to cultivate a different mind, a different attitude, a different perception of the world in which we, too, are temporary, enduring, and slowly decaying entities, right? We're just momentary, like a scream or like a note, right? I don't say, is here all the time. I don't say it doesn't exist at this moment, but it did exist for a moment. And it's not that it never exists. It's that it exists as a construct of many, many, many other processes. And we've experienced it in a moment, or two or three, or, no I, no doer, no recipient. Yet good and bad karma never cease to function. Karma functions. It isn't good, it isn't bad, it is a function. It is a function that creates inertia and momentum. And where that next moment instantiates is due to the momentum, the inertia of the energy itself. It may be weak, it may be strong, it may be temporary, but it's neither good nor bad. It's what you make of it that's positive or negative, right? Beneath the Buddha tree, you used your might to overcome the devil. Yeah, these English words. Gaining the sweet dew of nirvana, you won your way to enlightenment. So the devil isn't a personages to identify forces of nature, right? What he's talking about would be better said as Mara, the earthly attachments, the tendency toward hanging on to and obsessing and owning. That's our devil. That's what keeps us from being free of our attachments and experience things fully as they are and let them be for whatever moments they care to be. Their momentum, our momentum, all different degrees of momentum, kinetic energy. Does it make sense? Right? Already free of thought, perception, and volition. Now, again, we might get confused. Free of thought? Do we need to have no thought? No. A better word there would be considerations. When we think about something, not that we don't have thoughts, that's samsara. We can't stop that unless we extinguish ourselves, right? So thought is a natural process of all the consciousnesses experiencing this life. So no, you don't stop thinking. But already free of thought, perception, and volition, you refuted all the non-Buddhist doctrines. 3 times you turned the wheel of the law in the 1,000,000,000-fold world, the wheel that from the first has always been pure. So it's about a purification of those thought, perception, and volition. How do you move through your life? Do you move through your life with the knowledge, with the deep knowing and conviction that everything is just a temporal space, that you are free to experience as you will? Or do you move through life as constantly focused on every little thing? I have this, I don't have this. This is mine, this is yours. That's a dog, that's a cat. That's a rock, this is grass. I am eating a hamburger, I am whatever. Everything's identification. That is a samsaric mind, not an enlightened mind. An enlightened mind does all the same things, but doesn't see them as integral to being. They're just this amazing experience of being in samsara, like we're swimming through this amazing pool. We're in a pool. Whether it exists or not is only a momentary thing. It's not something we sink our identity into. Heavenly and human beings gained the way. This was proof of it. The 3 treasures thereupon appeared in this world. This wonderful law brought rescue to the many beings. Embracing it, they never regress, but dwell in constant quietude. Great physician king, healer of old age, sickness, and death, we pay homage to the boundless virtue of your Dharma. See, unmoved by acclamation or abuse, like Mount Sumeru, you pity in equal measure the good and the not good. So there's a reference to the very beginnings of the Four Noble Truths. You catch that? The part where it says, the great physician king, healer of old age, sickness, and death. It's not that old age, sickness, and death no longer happen. The healing is not being attached to those things, not being so identified with each of those stages of life that you're completely embroiled in them and you can't see the bigger picture. You could enjoy your demise because it's only a part of the system of life. Things arise, they endure, they decay, and they extinguish. We're no different. Every phenomena is like this. And if you know that, then you cease to fear it. You expect it whenever it occurs, right? You don't deny its existence. You deny that it exists persistently, that it is a condition ongoing without arising, endurance, and decay. That's simply not possible. That's not the truth of all phenomena. In mind and action impartial, like the empty sky, who can hark to this jewel of humankind, not give respectful assent? Now we offer these little parasols to the world-honored one, and in them is revealed to us the 3,000 worlds. The 3,000 worlds, the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. See how these themes they just keep repeating, just to a different audience, who, for whatever reason, need to hear this said in this manner so that they can begin to grasp the greater truth that you and I know, because we already know the Lotus Sutra. We already understand that we can invoke that free mind of Buddha, that we can release ourselves from the turmoil and stress and anxiety of everyday life, because those are illusions. We make them real in our samsaric mind. We suffer through them because we choose to suffer through them, because that suffering gives them existence, permanence, reality. Stop it. You're creating that. Your mind is creating that, right? This is all about understanding that. Choose to control your mind's avarice for owning every little thing, because that is from what you experience: pain, suffering, stress, anxiety. Places where gods, dragons, and spirits reside, Kimnaras, Yakshas, and all those other beings, everything that exists in the world we see. The 10-powered one in pity manifests these transformations, right? He's not transforming water into wine. He's transforming perception of water. That's a mental exercise, a mental awakening, not magic. The assembly, seeing this rare sight, all praise the Buddha. Now we bow our heads to the venerable one of the threefold world, great sage Dharma King, refuge of the multitude, viewing the Buddha with purified mind, none who do not rejoice. Amazing. We're all amazed. Each sees the world-honored one standing right before him. Such are the Buddha's transcendental powers, his unshared properties. The Buddha preaches the law with a single voice. He's not confused, and he's not confusing. If there is confusion, it is of your making, not the Buddha's speech. But each living being understands it according to his kind. Right? I'm always talking about this with you guys. We all have, as Shakyamuni pointed out many, many times, and he's doing it again, we all have a different path to our insights, to our awakenings. We all have different experiences of life. Even if we are together throughout most of it, we each perceive through our own inertias, our own momentum, our own karmic energies. Energy plus causes, plus work, karma. No matter how closely we're related, we each have our own freight train of karma. And we experience the same things, albeit differently. So they're really not the same things. You start to unglue your mind from this permanence of identification. All believe the world-honored one speaks the same words to all. Such are his transcendental powers, his unshared properties. The Buddha preaches the law with a single voice, but each living being understands it in his own way. All undertake the Buddhist practices and gain profit thereby. Such are his transcendental powers, his unshared properties. The Buddha preaches the law with a single voice, but to some it brings fear, to others delight and joy. So we all recognize that the Buddha is an enlightened entity who teaches with one voice, in other words, the same way to everyone, right? But each of the listeners, each of the world of learning and realization, each of the Arahants and Pratyeka Buddhas hear with different ears, inculcate meaning differently. This the Bodhisattva must be attentive to. Some are moved to leave the world. Some are freed of doubt. Some, listening to this enlightenment and the nature of everything in their possessive ownership samsaric world, is so frightened by the prospect that nothing they know or believe is real, that it's all made-up construction of the mind, is too much for them to bear. They actually take their own lives. While others are blown away. They lose all doubt. They see the wisdom in this, and they want it. They want to inculcate this wisdom into their daily lives. They see it. They get a glimmer. They get an insight. Many insights. Now, how do I do what this man, Buddha, has done? They still haven't unglued themselves and understand that Buddha is something they already have. We're in this transition here. Some are moved to leave the world, some are freed of doubt. Such are his transcendental powers, his unshared properties. Before the great diligence of the 10 powered ones, we bow our heads. We bow our heads to the fearlessness he has attained. So I want to clarify, we've read this sentence a couple of times. Such are his transcendental powers, his unshared properties. What do you think that means? And I've also said this in a different way many, many times. Have you not heard me say, nobody can take your Buddha away. Nobody can give you Buddhism or Buddha. Just like the mandala of Gohonzon. The mandala is freely traded amongst us because it is the gift of Nichiren as our samsaric focal point to awaken our inner Gohonzon, our Buddha wisdom, our pathway, our doorway, our instantiation of Buddha mind. Gohonzon, this ultimate awakening. But I can't hand you Buddha. Oh, you want to be enlightened? Wait a minute, I have an extra one here. Here, be enlightened. Can we do that? We can't do that. Just like when I say, I chant with you guys in mind. I chant for your lives. I don't give you anything when I say that. I don't put Buddha in you. What I do is I dedicate my efforts, my life, my chanting to your awakening, which only changes me. What I'm doing fully consciously is chanting with you in my mind so that my activities make me a better teacher, a better purveyor of paths to enlightenment, to reach whatever you need to hear in order to grasp your Buddha. No one can take your Buddha. Nobody can give you Buddha. Only you can awaken and instantiate your Buddha. It's you. It's not something else. It's an awakening of the mind, and that's your mind. So you take control of it. You instantiate your Buddha. And if you're frustrated, take it to your mandala and demand that your Buddha make itself known. You're ready. You need it. You want it. And there's no reason for you not to experience it this very moment. Buddha me. And who are you saying that to? Yourself. Your samsaric self. Let Buddha express with that kind of conviction. Right? We bow heads before one who dwells in unshared properties. See, we can't share. Here, have some of my Buddha so you can see what it's like. Give it back. You can't share this. You can only co-experience it. That's why when we chant together, it's such an amazing experience, because both our Buddhas are revealing themselves. It's like a great multiplication. Bow heads before the great leader of all beings. You can cut the thongs that bind the multitude. We bow heads to that. You cross to the other shore. We bow heads to that. We bow heads to one who can save all those in this world. Bow heads to one who long ago left the path of birth and death. You know the marks of all beings in their comings and goings. You have gained apt liberation from all phenomena. Free of worldly attachments like the lotus blossom, constantly you move within the realm of emptiness and quiet. You have mastered the marks of an all phenomena. No blocks, no hindrances. Like the sky, you lean on nothing. We bow our heads. So, still in the grammar here, there's the implication of one who has done. And Shakyamuni will take that apart. If not in this sutra, he will. And I think he already has in this sutra said that there is a dharma and there is not a dharma, and there is no dharma to not be a dharma. There is the dharma that is not. So in other words, all of this human communication about realizing one's awakened mind is the fodder of samsaric delusion. That we use our samsaric mind to take itself apart and then get it out of the way. Because once we achieve enlightenment and we attain Buddhahood, all the rest of it is no longer, it doesn't exist anymore, because it's no longer manufactured, constructed of the mind. The constructions end. Though we persist through samsara, the nature of our persistence and existence is simply time, unattached to phenomena, because we understand that it's all ephemeral. And so the only way to continue to exist in samsara with that enlightened mind is to adopt the very same illusions of samsara, of body, feet, walking, earth, but not as ownership, as simply a samsaric vehicle to move this enlightened mind through and thereby influence and share with others that they may join us on that freed, liberated mind while in samsara. That is the definition of a bodhisattva. Somebody who attains enlightenment and remains in samsara to lead others to the same. How many ways can I say that? When the rich man's son, jeweled accumulation, had finished reciting these verses, he addressed the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, these 500 sons of rich men have all set their minds on Anuttara, Samyak Sambodhai. They wish to hear how one can purify the Buddha lands. We beg the world-honored one to explain the practices carried out by Bodhisattvas in purifying the lands." So all of that was a recitation from those who want to pursue the Bodhisattva path and attain enlightenment. They've left arhatship behind. They realize that that is incomplete. And the words, hyphenated words, where is it? Anuttara Samyak Sambodhai, is that full enlightenment. That's what they want to reach, not what they've already learned. They want to get beyond that. They want to hear the golden words of Shakyamuni Buddha, train them, enlighten them to see how they can reach the much more accomplished enlightenment than that which has been taught as arhatship. So this is a very transitional moment in certainly in the written teachings, but certainly also in the oral teachings. It's just no way for us to know how that moved around geographically, culturally, because we have no recordings of it. So only with these later scribed translations can we peer into the nature of how Buddhism spread and how the meanings, the depth of understanding of Buddhism evolved through the capacity of the people. It wasn't evolving through Buddha. Buddha was already there. It's just that the people he was teaching weren't quite ready to understand. It took hundreds of years, centuries and centuries, for people to cultivate a mind of understanding of the nature of being that could then go back and look at Shakyamuni's words and get it a little deeper insight, a more liberated mind, liberated within the context of what it is to know, because that changes over time. In our era, the latter day of the law, the Mapo age that we occupy, the Lotus Sutra is the only one of the teachings that speaks directly to our capacity to enlighten. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Done. But if you're curious about what led to this knowledge, you may find in these older scripts little tendons of doubt that you still have as a modern person. It's in our history. And maybe snapping those illusions with something read in one of these earlier sutras will be the one insight that puts you over the top. I got it! Right? So that's the benefit of study. We don't want to regress and go, oh, that's how I need to practice. No, that's not the point of these study periods. The point of this is to unlock maybe some dusty little cabinets of thoughts in our heads that persist to create doubt. And we'll find that they were handled at some point. And then maybe we'll feel silly. It doesn't matter, as long as it launches us deeper into our enlightenment. More conviction, more resolve, more commitment, single-mindedly desiring to see Buddha, my mind as Buddha. Wake up! Right? The Buddha said, "Excellent jeweled accumulation. For the sake of the Bodhisattvas, you do right to ask the thus come one about the practices for purifying the lands." We know the lands are our world view, right? Not an actual geographical place. Listen well, and mull it over in your thoughts. See, thoughts? I will now explain to you. So that's a good spot to end today. Mark that off with my highlighter. And that's where we will continue on the morrow. Let me know in the comments if you're enjoying this, if this is of any value to you. I personally have always found it of great value. I found a lot of my insights. You know, for most of us, we practice for a while, and at some point, whether it's 6 months or 6 years, we start wondering what the heck we're doing, because we're still living in many ways in samsara. We forget to appreciate how much better our lives are after all that practice. But that's the nature of human beings. You know, you could get $1 million tomorrow, and in a week you'd be going, yeah, $1 million, that wasn't much. I need more, right? It's just, it's the avarice. We live in the epoch of greed, anger, and foolishness or stupidity. Anger, you know what anger is? Manipulation, backstabbing, working around, taking advantage of, right? Oh man, if you don't see that every time you turn on the radio or television, my goodness, you're not seeing much. And greed, avarice, gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have more, gotta have it, gotta have it. Whether it is a human, an extra patty on the burger, sleep, money, anything. That's the most obvious attachment, right? Tell me how you feel about the Vimalakirti. I hope that even though this is, you know, I've done a whole lecture series on the Lotus Sutra, and I've done lectures on the Vimalakirti, the Lankavatara, the perfection of wisdom. Now I'm hunkering down. I'm going through each of these little by little, because I want to make it really comfortably obvious to you that they aren't like completely different documents. It's not like you read the Quran and the next day you read the, you know, some sacred Kabbalah text, and they're like, Buddhism is super consistent. The difference for you and I is, because we live in this era of the Lotus Sutra practice, we can then look at these earlier texts and know immediately what they're pointing to. They're not mysterious at all. Oh gosh, he was talking about this then, but he didn't really fill it out, did he? He didn't really nail it down to this point. But there it is, there it is. He's been saying this all along. And you start to develop a different sort of compassion for humanity in its development. How long does it take to get a clue? And conversely, don't forget, for many of these people, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, they didn't have the stubbornness and the tremendous amount of attachments you and I do today. So it may very well be that for several of them, that's all they needed to attain enlightenment. It's you and I that are under the gun here. We're the ones with 1 billion attachments every second where our eyes are open. Look at all the devices we have to attach stuff to. It's insane, truly insane. So for us, rather than spending months analyzing how our thinking works, and that's okay if you do that, but understand, all you need to do is single-mindedly prepare, demand to experience Buddha. You have a mandala to focus that samsaric monkey mind of yours. We all have an innate Gohonzon door. The mandala helps us nail it in our mind, make it present in the moment. All we need to do is look through. Mamo Myoho Renge Kyo. It doesn't take much daimoku for all of the telephone monitors, Google Assistants, Siri to just fade away. as we penetrate this Buddha, unattached, unbothered, undifferentiated, distracted mind. Everything about your Butsudan, your altar, your mandala is about removing every distraction. Do not catch my eye. Do not catch my nose. Let me burn incense so my nose is also focused here. My ears listening to my rhythm, enunciation, saying it right. My eyes glued to the goal, Myo-ho. Let me be Renge. Kyo, Buddha, Buddha. That's all I want my mind to be. I'm telling you, there's no more direct way to attain your Buddhahood. And training in that way is how you maintain it for more and more duration throughout samsara. Walk as a Bodhisattva. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. It's a courageous practice. A lot of humans are perfectly happy being mired in misery. I see it every day. And I feel for those people. But until they get the spark of desire for liberation, truly, not just with their mouths, whining, but truly decide in their mind, I've had enough of this. I don't have to do this. There's a way not to do this. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Seek me out. Let me find you. Let me run into you, that I might aid, assist you on your way to your Buddha. Right? It takes determination to be happy. Happy as in unattached, unmiserableized. I love making up words. They're so powerful. All right. With that, I'll let you go. Till the next one. I will see you then. Don't forget to download the podcasts if they're helpful. Oral podcasts. We have to distinguish these days. I used to think there were videos and podcasts. Now I see videos called podcasts, and I see podcasts that have videos. I can't keep up. I have videos you can watch anytime, and I have podcasts you can listen to anytime. In the meantime, be kind to yourself. Stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.